Hello everybody, Lee Povey from Maximize Your Potential again. And today I want to talk about a subject that's really close to my heart and something that I've been working on both with myself and with men for probably 2 decades, maybe even 3 decades now. And the common and popular term for it right now is toxic masculinity. And that's something I'd really like to change. I think that's poor messaging. Because often it's not toxic masculinity, the effect of it can be toxic, but it's immature masculinity. And that's the phrase that I think we should start using. And it's looking at our masculinity like a boy looks at their masculinity. It's looking at masculinity from a hero rather than from an elder. And it's prevalent in our society. If you look in the media, if you look in films especially, there's a way that men are presented that's held as the ideal often. And this is this strong, silent, and often violent personality type. The type that doesn't say much, but when they say something, and they often say it with their fists, and this is popularized as the hero in many films. And then men look at this as an ideal to attain, like this is how I need to be. It encourages violence, it encourages homophobia, it encourages seeing women as lesser and as property. And as men, it's our responsibility to change this. There's many, many ways that men can be men and masculine and male that don't involve violence, that don't involve suppressing emotions. And here's where the issue starts. And I'm going to do a separate video about emotions where we'll touch on this more deeply. But here for this context is men, and especially boys, are told they must not feel their emotions. It's not manly to feel your emotions, especially if it's fear. Men must not be afraid. And there's this whole thing about you gotta be strong. So little boys, right from the beginning, then they're hearing this from their parents, they're hearing this from their dads, they're also hearing it from their mothers. You must be strong. You must not be afraid. Fear is a completely normal emotion and part of human experience. It's what's kept us alive till this point. Fear is vital. We knew we couldn't just run across a plain because we would be vulnerable to animals that were faster than us and stronger than us and could attack us and kill us. We had to be thoughtful in how we move through the world. We still have to be thoughtful. You can't run across a road. You're going to get killed if you just run across the road without looking. So fear is vital to us as an emotion and an experience. Yet we're telling men and boys they're not allowed to feel fear. And then we wonder why they don't know how to process their emotions. We tell them they're not allowed to be sad. We even tell them they're not allowed to be too happy unless it's something around a sporting context. And then we encourage anger. Anger's healthy. Men should be able to be angry. So we're shaping the way that boys experience the world. And this has a big dramatic effect on how they think they should behave. And men can show up in many different ways. I see on these some of these groups I follow, men talking about men have got to be huge. Why? In this modern day society, there is no requirement for strength. It's good to exercise. Absolutely, I exercise. But there's no requirement to be big. And I think there's this pervasive thing through male culture that bigness equals dominance equals a better man. Yet your physical size doesn't have much impact on how you're going to get through the world. Your intelligence, your ability to connect with people, your soft skills are going to be much bigger indicators of your success in the world than your physical presence. So what do we need to do? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to take responsibility as men. How are we portraying ourselves? How do we portray ourselves with each other? What kind of stuff do we say to each other? I remember when I was young, it was common for us to tease each other about, you're gay. What are we saying there? So that's weak. That's feminine to be gay. That's the message that we're saying. It's an insult. It's a slur. So I've learned that I shouldn't be doing that. Okay? So we as men can learn that we can change. And what we used to do, it's not acceptable anymore and it's not helping us. We can look at the way that men are portrayed in media and that men should be able to be more emotional, that they should be able to display their emotions, and we should be looking at a much wider gambit of how men are displayed in the media and how we look at men in films and we look at what we're attaining here as being a decent human being. and showing up for others, connection, love, how we respond to another human's bid for attention, that's much more important than this strong, silent stereotype, which is outdated and isn't actually how men would have been in tribal times. Like, they wouldn't have been big. You know, how we survived is we outran the other animals because we were able to sweat better than they were, so we didn't overheat like they did. So we would outrun them until they get exhausted, and that's how we used to hunt. You don't need to be big for that. In fact, you want to be small for that. So all of this stuff about men used to be big and hunting, just not true. It's just buying into a stereotype to sell you supplements and to sell an image that's just not true. And then what do we do as men? Well, we start treating each other with more respect. We don't tease men for not living up to the traditional male stereotype. We encourage them to be who they are. Like, who gets to decide what manliness is? Who gets to decide what masculinity is? Instead of we get to decide ourselves how we want to be in the world and the experience that we want to have. And then our friends, our families, they should support that. And they should support us being the best versions of ourselves in our essence, not trying to fit some weird stereotype that isn't appropriate for most men, that actually forces men to be less happy, to be less connected, which is why the rates of suicide for men are sharply rising, especially in middle-aged men, because they don't know how to connect. They don't know how to have friendships. And that is where this strong silent type and this aggression towards other men and the dominance, you know, the whole alpha myth that you see in so many different men's groups and stuff, and I see, you know, popularized in the media. The whole study about alphas was when they put wolves into a contained environment and they changed their behaviors by doing that. And they found that in the wild, wolves didn't behave like that at all. There wasn't a hierarchy in the same way. So here we are, living off of a full study, a manufactured study, and now this is the ideal of how men should behave. So what I'd like people to take from this is, men especially, what I'd like you to take from this is, stop shaming yourselves, stop shaming others, stop living up to a false narrative. Don't listen to the fake heroes in stories. Instead, think about, how do you want to live your life in a way that's productive to a society, that allows you to feel your emotions and experience the world in a more meaningful way, connect with others, show your love and be supportive of others. And women, stop shaming men. Stop saying, I want a strong, tough man, because then you're going to get an immature man, most likely, that's going to live up to that stereotype, and your relationships are not going to be good. And I hear women complaining about, oh, this man doesn't understand me and he doesn't understand his emotions. Yes, because women have also spent decades teaching men not to feel their emotions. When we watch small children, boys and girls have the same emotional responses, and they move through those emotional responses quickly. So let's get back to being able to experience our emotions, to being kinder to each other, and to stop pushing these false narratives on each other, and just accept people for who they are and the way that they want to live. Thanks, everybody. Comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. Let's get involved and let's talk about this. Thanks.